Hey there, I'm Robert, turning 64 this year. One day I'll never forget is when my son, Michael, hit me with a surprise gift, a cruise ticket. His weirdly excited smile should have tipped me off, but I didn't catch on. After I left, I realized I forgot my blood pressure pills, so I headed back to grab them. That's when I caught Michael on a phone call with his wife, Claire. He said something that felt like an ice bath. Relax, honey. It's a one-way trip. Once we're out on the ocean, it'll be simple to make it look like an accident. People will just assume some old guy went overboard. I stood there, just outside my door, trying to keep it together. My mind raced, thinking, okay, Michael, if that's how you want to play it, I'm ready. But you're about to be in a world of trouble. This was my son, the one I'd loved and nurtured, making the biggest mistake of his life. Michael thought I was just some old man who'd fold easily. He was about to see just how wrong he was. See, a 64-year-old who's weathered life's ups and downs, raised kids, mourned his spouse, and faced deception, isn't someone who gives up without a fight. If Michael wanted to play games, he'd better be prepared. First, I needed to understand. Why would my own son want me gone? This all started 3 days earlier. Michael came over, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years, holding a shiny gold envelope. "Dad," he announced, hugging me like he hadn't in a long time, "we've got a nice surprise for you. Claire and I think it's time you got treated to something truly special." When I opened the envelope, what I found inside was almost too much. I was looking at cruise tickets. 7 days cruising through the Caribbean, stopping in dreamlike places like the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos. It was the trip I'd kept postponing, always prioritizing Michael's tuition, daily bills, family emergencies. "This must have cost a fortune," I said, my voice tight with emotion as I held those first-class tickets. "Dad, this costs nothing compared to your happiness," Michael said softly, with that tone that always melted my heart. "You deserve it and then some. Plus, you could use a breath of sea air after all these years in the city." Being 64 has taught me to listen to my gut, and something felt off with Michael's sudden generosity. There was something in his eyes, something that didn't quite meet mine, that made me wary. But this was my son, my only child, the little boy I'd comforted during long, feverish nights, the young man whose every major decision I'd backed. "So when do I set sail?" I asked, faking excitement to hide my worry. "The day after tomorrow. Everything's all set. Just bring your bags to the port. Claire's made sure everything's arranged." That night, while I packed, that feeling of unease stuck with me. Recently, Michael had been distant, barely visiting, hardly calling, and now out of nowhere this extravagant gift showed up. I told myself it was just an old man's paranoia messing with my head, doubting his son's motives. Maybe Michael was finally acknowledging what I'd done for him over the years, and this was his way of giving back. I tried to stay hopeful. The morning of the trip, I was up early, packed, and ready to head out, except I forgot my meds in the bathroom. When I slipped back inside, trying to be quiet, I overheard Michael on the phone in the living room. "Yeah, Claire, he's on his way to the port now." "Nope, he doesn't suspect anything. Everything's falling into place." His voice was cold, lacking the warmth he showed me. It felt like the floor might give out beneath me. He continued, "Dad's life insurance is at $200,000, plus the house, easily another $300,000. That covers my debts and leaves me plenty for a fresh start." My heart nearly stopped. My own son was plotting my death like ticking off items on a shopping list. "Don't stress, sweetheart. At his age, these things happen at sea. No one's going to look too closely. It'll be the perfect guise." So there we were, all gathered in this heavy-hearted atmosphere, the room thick with sorrow surrounding the grieving children. My own tears weren't solely from mourning. Nope, they were stirred by a mix of anger, betrayal, and a newfound determination I hadn't felt in ages. Right then, it struck me hard. My own kin had turned into something terrifying, and if I wanted to make it out of this alive, I needed to outsmart him. So, I slipped out of the house quietly, pretending I hadn't picked up on anything. But inside, my mind was racing a mile a minute. I needed to hit the port, pronto. Hopping on that ship was key, though with every step, I felt the tension in the air getting thicker. Sitting in the back of that taxi, I watched the city's familiar streets blur past, reflecting on when everything took a nosedive. I mean, me, Robert Sullivan, I poured every ounce of myself into raising my kid right. Got hitched young at 20 to Michael's mom, and put in 15 years as an accountant at this small firm, pinching pennies so my family had everything they needed. When cancer took my wife too soon, Michael was just 12. From that point, my life revolved around making sure he had what he needed. Quit my job to be there for him, day in and day out. Sold my car, pawned my beloved watches, drained my savings to bankroll his way into Columbia, an Ivy League gig. While other dads my age were off gallivanting, traveling, living it up, I was pulling late nights doing freelance accounting gigs to foot Michael's bills. And never once did I whine or throw it in his face. I truly believed I was raising someone who'd appreciate all the sacrifices. Boy, was I wrong. When Michael got hitched to Claire 5 years ago, I was ecstatic. I seemed to finally be getting that dream family, with daughters-in-law, grandkids, and warm family gatherings. But Claire? She was never keen on me. From the get-go, I noticed the way she looked at me, almost like I was an unwanted addition to her picture-perfect life. Then Michael, my dear Michael, started to change. Suddenly, visits dwindled, calls stopped, excuses got craftier. Ask him about work? He'd brush it off, talk about future plans, off the table. In that taxi, the truth dawned on me. All the clues were there. I just ignored them. Like when I dropped by unannounced half a year ago and caught Michael in a heated money argument over the phone. He'd clammed up when he saw me, hung up quickly, and dismissed it as nothing. Or when I overheard Claire telling a friend she'd rather I didn't live so close. Ouch. I confronted Michael, and he smoothed it over, saying it was just a misunderstanding, that Claire actually liked me, claiming women sometimes just say things they don't mean. I always excused it, convinced myself I was being paranoid. But then it hit me squarely, the harsh realization that my son had been planning this from the get-go. This wasn't spur of the moment. It was a carefully orchestrated plot, cold and calculated. When the taxi pulled up at the port, there it was, a towering 12-story cruise ship, looking like a giant fortress floating on water. People were bustling around, families buzzing with excitement, couples capturing memories, and kids running free. They were all off on a week-long ocean escape. Meanwhile, according to Michael's master plan, I wasn't supposed to return. But as I wheeled my bag towards the entrance, a small, knowing smile crept onto my face. Michael seriously underestimated me. He thought I was just some fragile, oblivious old man. Little did he know that behind my quiet demeanor, sacrifices, and seemingly harmless facade, I'd been watching, learning, putting the puzzle pieces together. I wasn't the naive pushover he thought I was. When I handed over my documents at the ship's entrance, the attendant flashed me that well-practiced, friendly smile you see at these places. "Big adventure, Mr. Sullivan. First cruise, huh?" "Indeed it is," I replied, keeping up that gentle charm and vulnerability people usually expect from someone my age. "A gift from my son," I added. "He said I needed some relaxation." "What a considerate son," the attendant commented while double-checking my papers. Little did they know how these 7 days would be the longest I've spent away from my son Michael in ages. If only they were aware that this trip was meant to be the final act of my life, according to his plans. But as I walked up the ramp onto the ship, I was busy hatching a different scheme. I had just 1 week to flip the script, from prey to predator, gather the evidence I needed, and pull off the surprise I had in store for Michael. My cabin was a real stunner, perched on the 8th floor with a breathtaking view of the ocean. It had it all: style, a cozy bed, and my little private balcony. Michael clearly wasn't stingy with the budget, probably thinking it would be simpler to get rid of someone off a balcony. I tossed my suitcase on the bed and sat down to gather my thoughts. I needed a solid plan, some allies, and more crucially, proof. Knowing what was happening was one thing. Proving it was an entirely different ballgame. I dug out my phone and dialed a number I'd saved but had never actually called. It was Frank Harrison's. He's a private investigator I bumped into when a neighbor was having issues with her ex. He'd given me his card back then, saying to hit him up if I ever needed help. After a few rings, a deep voice came through. "Detective Harrison." "Hey, this is Robert Sullivan. We ran into each other a while ago at the Hope Community Center. My neighbor had those problems. Do you remember me?" "Absolutely, Mr. Sullivan. What can I assist you with?" he responded. I took a deep breath. "I've got a serious situation. My son's plotting to kill me." There was a pause on the other end. He probably thought I was just another older guy with family problems. "Mr. Sullivan, are you certain about this? Those are very serious claims." "I'm entirely certain. I overheard his plan to have me killed. Right now I'm on a cruise, and he thinks this trip will be my last." I explained. "I need you to look into his financials, his debts, anything you can dig up, and help me gather evidence of his plot. I'm on the Star of the Sea, heading for the Caribbean soon. I'll be out of reach for a week, but when I'm back, I'll need whatever info you have on Michael Sullivan." "Got it," he replied. "I'll send you my banking details for a $500 advance. And Mr. Sullivan, please, be careful. If what you're saying holds true, you're in a real bind. Don't do anything rash." "Detective, I've been around 64 years. I've faced tough times, lost a spouse, and raised a son alone, dedicating everything to others. Trust me, I won't be beaten by my own kid." After the call with Detective Harrison wrapped up, I sat in my cabin, a strange mix of fear and determination swirling around. As the ship slowly pulled away from the dock, my son's plot edged closer to becoming reality. But what Michael didn't know was, his father wasn't as feeble as he'd assumed. Over the years, while appearing passive, I'd been observing, listening, collecting secrets neither he nor Claire imagined I knew. The first thing I needed to do was get familiar with the ship, checking out every corner, emergency exit, and potential accident spot. I stepped out of my cabin, navigating through the ship's hallways. It was quite a sight: elegant restaurants, casinos, shops, a large pool up on the top deck, plus theaters and libraries. It was like a bustling city floating on water. But I wasn't here for enjoyment. I was here to stay alive. As I explored, I kept a watchful eye on the security cameras. They were placed all over the public areas, which was somewhat comforting. It would be tricky to make someone vanish in such a monitored place. Yet I noticed that the private cabin balconies didn't have cameras, and my room, of course, featured one of those balconies. Michael chose that cabin with a purpose. As I sat eating lunch alone in the ship's main dining area, staring out the window, my mind was a whirlwind of confusion and complications I couldn't escape. I found myself watching the people around me. Most were families making the most of their vacation, older couples celebrating anniversaries, or friends having a blast together. They all seemed so regular, so happy. Then I noticed a man. Sitting close by, he was about my age, reading as he ate. With his well-kept silver hair and crisp blue suit, he gave off this vibe of independence and strength. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and he gave me a warm smile, the kind people like us recognize. I felt a pull to go over. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, a bit unsure. "Eating alone isn't all that fun." He responded with a friendly nod and an accent I couldn't quite identify. "Please do," he said welcomingly. "I'm Carl Anderson from Denver. Pleasure to meet you," he introduced himself. "Robert Sullivan from Chicago," I replied. We got to talking over lunch and quickly found we had a lot in common. Both widowers, we had raised our kids alone, worked hard for years, and were finally taking some time for ourselves. "My kids insisted I go on this vacation," he said, taking a sip of his coffee. "They thought it was high time I relax and enjoy myself a bit. I wasn't sure at first, but eventually gave in." "Same here," I laughed, feeling an immediate connection. "My son Michael booked this cruise for me. He says I need to escape the crazy city life." There was something about Carl's eyes that inspired trust. They were wise, as if he'd seen much of the world and knew how to understand people. "Robert," he leaned in a bit and spoke softly. "Can I ask something personal? You look a little on edge. Doesn't really fit a man on a holiday he's been longing for." I considered opening up, but remembered Detective Harrison's warning to be cautious. "It's just my first cruise," I said, offering a partial truth. "Everything's new. I'm just a little nervous." Carl nodded, although it was clear he suspected more. This man could see things others might miss. "Look, Robert," he said, leaning closer. "Even though we're strangers, 62 years of life has taught me when someone's up against it. If you need to talk or a hand with whatever, don't hesitate. My cabin's 1247 on the 12th floor." His words brought me a comfort I hadn't felt in a while. Here was this stranger, offering support more than my own son had in ages. "Thanks, Carl, really. My cabin's not far, 847 on the 8th floor." "Perfect," he smiled. "We're practically neighbors." After lunch, I roamed the cruise ship. I wandered into the ship's library where they had internet access. Costly and limited, but enough to send a quick message. I sat down and typed out an email to Detective Harrison. "I'm okay. Look into Michael's gambling issues. Might be the key to all this. Met someone here who's looking out for me. Robert." I then made my way to the casino, not to gamble, just to see for myself. I wanted to understand what this world of betting was about, the kind of debts one could fall into, and how desperation could lead to dire acts. People were placing large bets as easily as buying a snack. Their expressions lit up with wins and darkened with losses. Some seemed caught in a loop, betting more to recover their losses. It hit me. Michael wasn't just an ungrateful son. He was a man drowning in debt, viewing my death as his ticket out of this financial mess. Later, at dinner, Carl joined me again, choosing to sit with me this time. "Robert," he started, taking a seat. "I've been thinking about our chat from earlier, and there's something I need to say. You don't seem like a guy just enjoying a holiday. Someone once said to me, 'You look like you're either running from something or cooking up a new scheme,' as I stared out at the ocean. I hesitated, debating just how much truth I wanted to share. After a pause, I turned to Carl, saying, 'Have you ever been betrayed by someone you loved deeply?' His eyes softened, a flicker of understanding there. "Yeah," he replied. "My business partner was stealing from us for years, nearly sunk us." "What did you do?" "I did what had to be done. Gathered evidence, confronted him, and made sure he was held accountable. But Robert, this is about your son." I exhaled, seeing Carl as someone who could shoulder family secrets, and besides, I needed help. "Carl, my son is trying to kill me, and I've got a week to stop him," I confessed, locking eyes with him. Carl didn't react with shock or disbelief, but with a knowing look, like he had seen this kind of family darkness before. He leaned closer, speaking softly. "Robert, tell me everything from the start." Over the next 40 minutes, I laid it all out. From the cruise that was supposed to be a gift to the chilling phone call, my worries about Michael's gambling, and how he saw the life insurance as a jackpot. Carl listened closely, not interrupting. Once I was finished, he sat there, taking it in. "Robert, this is serious. You're in real danger, but you've got a plan, right?" "I'm starting one," I admitted. "I've got a private detective tailing Michael, but that's not enough. I need solid proof, witnesses, something that the law can't ignore. And how are you going to manage that on a cruise?" That's when I dropped the bomb. "I need your help, Carl. Michael's going to act the concerned son, reaching out. Every call, every message, those moments could be when he slips up." Carl nodded as he started to understand my plan. "You want to catch him on tape?" he asked. "Exactly. But I can't do it alone. I need witnesses, someone neutral, someone who can back me up." "You can count on me," Carl promised right away. "But Robert, there's more we need to think about. If Michael's planning an accident, he might have someone on board helping him." That thought hit me hard. "Do you think Michael's paid someone on the crew? Or maybe hired someone to mix in with the passengers?" "Robert, be careful. Don't trust anyone but me, don't accept drinks from strangers, and don't find yourself alone, especially on that balcony." I was already worried about the balcony, such a perfect spot. Too isolated. Exactly what I was thinking. "Listen, I've got an idea. What if you stay in my cabin? It's a suite, with a sofa bed. That way, if someone comes looking, you won't be there." Carl's offer hit me deeply. This almost stranger was willing to risk it all for me. "Carl, I can't ask that of you. If Michael has someone on the ship—" "Robert," Carl interrupted with conviction. "I'm 62, raised my kids, said goodbye to my wife, ran a company for decades. A money-hungry kid doesn't scare me. Plus," he added with a cheeky grin, "I could use some excitement. It's been a while." Later, after dinner, Carl helped me move my things to his room. It was bigger than mine, with a separate living area and a spacious balcony, but crucially, 2 beds so we could keep watch over each other. While arranging my stuff, Carl asked, "Tell me more about Michael, the way he thinks, his habits. What's his relationship with Claire like? Has he always been manipulative, or is this new?" I thought about it before replying. "He's always been clever, even as a kid. Michael knew how to get what he wanted. I used to think it was just cleverness, never imagined it would lead to this. And Claire? What's happening there? At first they seemed really in love, but lately, there's tension. Claire's always complaining about money, wanting a bigger house, more expensive holidays, a fancier car. Michael always assures her things will get better, that he's going to earn more. Now, we can see where he planned to get that extra cash from," Carl added with a note of sarcasm. So it was around 10 at night when my phone started buzzing. It was Michael calling. I shot a look over at Carl, and we both knew it was showtime for our little plan. Carl gave me a nod, phone in hand, ready to record, and whispered, "Make him slip." I took a deep breath, steadying myself, and answered, "Hey, Dad." "Hey there, son. How's the cruise treating you? Having fun?" Michael's voice sounded like the regular concerned dad, soft and caring. Honestly, if I hadn't caught him chatting with Claire earlier, I'd believe he genuinely cared. "The cruise is amazing, son. The ship's fantastic, and my cabin's super cozy. Thanks for the gift. It's really generous." "You deserve it, Dad," he replied. "Made any new friends on board?" It was a weird question. Seemed odd he'd care. "Yeah, met a great guy named Carl. We've been sharing meals and stuff." Michael hesitated for just a second. "That's wonderful, Dad. Just stay cautious. Some folks on these trips might want to take advantage." Carl raised his eyebrows, knowing Michael was trying to mess with our trust in others. "Don't worry about me, son. I'm cautious," I said. "How's everything back home? How's Claire?" "Everything's fine, Dad. Claire sends her love and hopes you're really enjoying yourself." "How sweet of her. Michael, can I ask something?" "Of course, Dad. Anything." "So what was the story behind this trip? It seemed pretty random." Michael paused again, longer this time. Well, Claire and I were talking, and we thought you seemed a bit worn out and stressed and you needed some time away. Time away, huh? I repeated, glancing over at Carl, who was jotting everything down. Yeah, sometimes it's just good to take a break from everything. I get that. Michael, I have to be honest, felt kinda weird accepting such a big gift. Must have cost a lot. Dad, stop fretting. It's worth it for your well-being. Carl scribbled a note, passing it over. Ask about the return. Michael, silly question here, but do you have my return ticket? My papers only show a one-way fare. Long pause followed. I had to check my phone to make sure the line was still active. Michael, you still there? I asked. Yeah, I'm here. Claire just said something about the tickets. Don't worry, the travel agency's all over it. You just enjoy the ride. We'll sort out those details. But Michael, I really need to know I can come back. Can you reconfirm with the agency for my peace of mind? Dad, trust me. Everything's in order. Don't stress. Just enjoy your vacation. Okay, son, I trust you. Good night, Dad. Love you. Love you too, Michael. Sleep well. After the call, Carl and I just sat there for a while, trying to process everything. Robert, Carl said finally, that call was revealing. He totally dodged your question about the return. He's trying to lull you into relaxing too much. And him asking if I was making friends, I added. It's almost like I was considering then who'd actually notice if something went wrong with me. Carl added, Exactly. Tomorrow let's go to the ship's service desk and double-check your return ticket. We need to find out exactly what Michael has set up. So, the next morning, we were up with the sun and got right to it. We grabbed a quick breakfast in Carl's cabin to avoid the crowds, then went back to the task at hand, heading to Deck 3's passenger office. The place was very sleek and staffed by crew members in crisp uniforms. We found a young lady named Patricia, judging by her name tag, who greeted us with a cordial smile. Good morning, gentlemen. How may I assist you today? She asked. Keeping calm, I replied, Morning. I need to verify my travel itinerary. I'm Robert Sullivan, cabin 847. Patricia was tapping away on her keyboard, a look of worry etched on her face. Mr. Sullivan, it looks like you're set for a 7-day Caribbean cruise, but... She faltered, squinting at the screen in confusion. But what? Carl asked, sensing something was off. Well, it's strange. You've only got a ticket to the cruise, but nothing for a flight back to Chicago. Normally, our packages would include both ways. Even though deep down I suspected as much, hearing it confirmed felt like a blow to the gut. And what does that mean exactly? Carl pressed, keeping up the act as if he was clueless too. So, when the cruise wraps up in 7 days, you're kind of stuck with no way back. It could be a glitch, or maybe the person who set this up was planning to add the return later. Who booked it, if you don't mind me asking? I questioned, already knowing the truth. Patricia double-checked. It's booked under Michael Sullivan, and the credit card's in his name. Is he related? He's my son, I said, sadness and anger swirling inside me like a storm. Then he'll probably sort out your journey back. But Mr. Sullivan, I'd recommend getting in touch with him soon. Flights from Miami to Chicago get full quickly this time of year, Patricia advised. Carl and I shared a knowing look. Carl asked, Patricia, can Mr. Sullivan go ahead and buy a return ticket now to guarantee a spot? Of course. Let me see what's available, she responded, fingers flying over the keys again. After a moment, she said, I found a seat on a flight leaving the same day the cruise ends, Saturday at 3:00 p.m. It'll cost $750. I'll buy it, I confirmed, handing her my credit card. While Patricia processed the transaction, Carl leaned in and whispered, Robert, this is our first bit of evidence. Michael deliberately didn't book your return. This was planned. With everything settled at the office, we decided to wander the deck for some privacy. Despite the sun shining warmly and a soft breeze, I felt the weight of truth pressing on me. "Carl," I began as we strolled by the railings, "each clue we've picked up is like a fresh sting, a painful reminder that my son seems to wish me out of the picture." "I get it, Robert, but with every piece we gather, you're more protected. You got your flight home now, and we've captured proof of Michael's intentions," Carl reassured me. My phone buzzed just then. It was a text from Michael. "Morning, Dad. How did you sleep in your cabin? Hope all's well." I showed it to Carl. "He's checking if you're still in your cabin," Carl noted. Michael probably expected me to respond from there. I decided to up the ante. "Morning, son," I texted. "Slept like a baby. I'm chilling on deck, soaking up the sun. The ship's fantastic." The reply came fast. "Glad to hear, Dad. Have you had a chance to explore the ship yet?" A strange question. It was as if it mattered to him how much I'd seen. "Not everything. This place is massive. Checked out the restaurants and casino. Might hit the pool and spa today," I sent back. "That's awesome, Dad. Just watch yourself near those railings. Some folks get seasick and stumble with the ship swaying," he replied. Carl, peering over my shoulder, turned pale. "Robert," he muttered. Speaking softly, he suggested how Michael might be planning my end. "He's hinting at something happening near the railings," Carl spoke quietly. Despite the sun's warmth, a chill ran through me. "I figured," I replied, the cold reality sinking deeper. Michael was planting seeds, setting the scene for when news spread. I messaged back, reassuring him, "No worries, son. I'm always careful and steer clear of the edges." "I hope so, Dad. I want you to come back safe. Love you," Michael responded. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here he was, voicing concern for my safety, while likely scheming otherwise. That day, Carl and I worked to flesh out our plan. We needed more evidence, more solid proof of Michael's true agenda. It was also crucial to find out if someone else was in cahoots with him on board. Carl suggested we be on the lookout for any crew or passengers paying a bit too much attention to me. Later by the pool, I noticed a man, probably in his 40s, sneak peeking at us from the bar. He stood out, the only one in a green shirt and long pants at a poolside. Each time I glanced back, he quickly looked away. "Carl," I whispered, "see that guy at the bar, green shirt? Keeps watching us." Carl casually turned to look. "Yeah, I see him. Looks suspicious for sure." "Let's give this a shot," Carl said as he strolled towards the restroom. I stayed put, keeping my eyes on Mr. Greenshirt. Sure enough, he was glued to me, completely ignoring Carl. When Carl came back, it confirmed my suspicion. "Robert, that dude's totally zoned in on you. Didn't even give me a second glance when I left. What's the plan now?" "Let's keep our wits about us," I suggested. "I'll get up and make my way to the elevator. You hang back and see if he follows me." Taking Carl's advice, I slowly gathered my stuff and headed toward the elevator. Just as the doors opened, I glanced over my shoulder. Sure enough, Mr. Greenshirt bolted from the bar and trailed me. I quickly stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the 12th floor, where Carl's cabin was located. As the doors closed, I felt a mix of relief and dread, now absolutely sure Michael had set someone to spy on me on board. Carl arrived at the cabin about 15 minutes later. "Robert, you were spot on," he said. "The guy followed you and took the next elevator. He's definitely up to something shady." "What are we going to do about this? If Michael's got a guy on this ship, my neck's on the line," I said, worry creeping into my voice. "We gotta outsmart them," Carl replied confidently. "Tomorrow we'll confront him, but carefully. We'll force him to reveal his cards, just like we're doing with Michael." That evening, we decided to have dinner in Carl's cabin, keeping a low profile and steering clear of crowded places. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. It was Claire, sounding surprisingly cheerful. "Hi, Robert. It's Claire. How's the cruise going? It had been a while since Claire had reached out to me directly. Hey Claire, nice to hear from you. The cruise is great, thanks, I replied. Awesome. Michael mentioned you two caught up yesterday and that you're enjoying yourself, which is good to hear, she said, while Carl quietly hit record on his phone. Yeah, I've been having a good time. But I do have to ask, Claire. I checked at the cruise office and they told me there's no return ticket booked for me. Any idea what that's about? I asked. She was silent for a moment. Oh, that's strange, Robert. Michael took care of all the bookings. Must be a system glitch. We'll sort it out, she finally said. Are you sure? I've already gotten a return ticket just to be on the safe side, I added. There was another pause. You did? That wasn't necessary, Robert. We had it under control. Claire tried to reassure me, but there was a hint of tension in her voice. I just didn't want to end up stuck in Miami, I explained. Totally understand, she replied. I'll let you get back to your trip. See you when you're back. Claire, before you go, why the gift of this trip? I pressed further. He mentioned it, but didn't really give me the reason. We noticed you seemed burnt out, Robert, really on edge. We thought a little time away might do you some good. A longer break? Yeah, just to unplug from everything for a bit. It's nice to disconnect from all the usual chaos. Claire echoed what Michael had said, almost like they'd rehearsed it. I got the message. Thanks for looking out for me, I said. No worries, Robert. Take care and enjoy the time. After I hung up, Carl and I exchanged knowing looks. Finally, Carl broke the silence. That conversation was even more telling than yesterday's with Michael. Claire's clearly in on whatever's happening. She almost panicked when you mentioned you'd already bought your return ticket. It's like you booted their plan. By the third day on board, Carl and I decided it was time to confront the guy in the green shirt who'd been shadowing me. We'd do it in a smart way, at a public place where it'd be safe. After breakfast, we made our way to the ship's casino, a spot filled with people, security cameras, and crew members always around. Carl had come up with a smart plan. Robert, he explained as we made our way to the casino, I'll take a seat at a poker table by the entrance while you find a slot machine and sit there alone. Once that guy shows up, and I'm sure he will, act like you indulged a little too much at breakfast. Why's that? I asked. So he lowers his defenses and sees you as an easy mark. Predators pounce when they think the prey's weak. If he's working with Michael, he'll want to make a move. Everything fell into place just as expected. I'd been hanging out at the slot machines for about 20 minutes, pretending to be a bit off balance and speaking to myself like I was about to get seasick when I spotted him making his way over. He had swapped his green shirt for a yellow one, but it was easy to tell it was the same guy. Tall, black hair, somewhere in his 40s, and sporting a smile that was supposed to be friendly, but honestly, it gave me the heebie-jeebies. Excuse me, sir, he said as he approached my machine. Are you doing okay? You look a bit out of sorts. Oh yeah, I replied, faking a slight slur to add to the effect. I guess I overdid it a bit with the mimosas at breakfast. These vacations, they make me lose my wits. He gave a knowing smile, clearly buying into my act. Is this your first time on a cruise? He asked, settling in at a machine next to mine. Yeah, my son gave me the trip, I told him, playing along. It's time for me to kick back. I was giving him exactly what he was after. What a thoughtful son. Is he on the cruise with you? No, he stayed back in Chicago. This trip's just for me, to unwind on my own. His eyes lit up at that detail. You should make the most of it then. Have you explored the whole ship? He inquired. Almost. Last night I caught the sunset from the top deck. It was breathtaking, but being surrounded by all that water feels a bit overwhelming sometimes. Overwhelming? How so? He continued, probing. Oh, it's just my clumsy nature, I said, giggling as if the alcohol was really getting to me. I always worry about getting too close to the edges. With the ship swaying, I'm afraid I might topple overboard. His expression shifted like he'd just hit the jackpot. Smart thinking to be cautious, he advised, sounding more calculating. Especially at night. The decks get slippery from the sea spray. Really? That's freaky. Maybe I should just stick to my cabin after dinner. Which floor's your cabin on? That was the question I'd been primed for. 8th floor, cabin 847, I said. Nice balcony, though, as I mentioned. I'm nervous about leaning too much near the railings. His smile gave me the shivers. Well, it was nice talking to you. Enjoy your cruise. And just like that, he hurried off. I spotted him heading straight for the ship's public phones. Carl had been keeping an eye on our interaction from his spot at the poker table. Once the guy left, Carl quietly followed his trail. When Carl came back about 15 minutes later, he looked like he had urgent news. Robert, we gotta talk. Before I knew it, we were in Carl's cabin with the door locked behind us. He didn't hold back. Robert, he said urgently, that guy made a call right after he spoke to you. I didn't catch all of it, but I definitely heard him mention your room number and the floor, and he talked about how you were scared of the railings. He said it was perfect for what they needed. I felt like I'd been socked in the stomach. Carl, are you sure about this? Did you really hear that? I asked, panic rising within me. Without hesitation, Carl nodded. Yes, Robert. It's clear he's in cahoots with Michael. They know exactly where you are, and now they've got a plan to make it seem like an accident. I collapsed onto the sofa, the reality hitting me hard. So what should we do? If Michael's got someone on board and they know how they plan to take me out, then what? Carl, with a calm determination that was strangely reassuring, said, We've got to stay a step ahead. Robert, you can't go back to your cabin for the rest of the cruise. You'll stay here where it's safe. Plus, we'll set a trap. A trap? How are we going to do that? Tomorrow night is the captain's gala. The whole ship will be at the main hall till late. It's the perfect chance for them to sneak into your cabin or set up on your balcony. Carl, I'm not too keen on using myself as bait. You won't be. We'll get the ship's security involved and set up a sting operation. That's how we catch them red-handed with all the evidence we need. That afternoon, as we put our plan into gear, my phone buzzed. It was Michael, but he sounded different, almost nervous. Hey, Dad, how's the cruise treating you? Oh, it's been quite the adventure for sure, I replied. And you're still comfy in your cabin? No problems with noise? His questions were too precise, like he was double-checking. No problem, son. Sleeping soundly. Glad to hear. Tomorrow's the captain's gala, right? Any plans? Yep, the big party night, I answered, sensing something fishy. Awesome. Those parties are a blast. You're going? Wouldn't miss it. Got my green suit ready. Hey, hope you have a blast, Dad. When do those get-togethers usually call it a night? He was trying to get a handle on when I'd be moving around. Not sure, but I bet it'll be pretty late. Well past midnight. Okay, but listen. Once it's wrapped up, make a beeline back to your cabin. No late-night roaming. It's not the safest. Carl stared at me like he'd seen a ghost or something. Michael was crystal clear. I needed to stick to the game plan and head to my cabin straight after the party. That's exactly where trouble would be waiting. Don't worry, son. I'll crash as soon as it's over. Great. Love you, Dad. Get some shut-eye. After we hung up, there was a moment of awkward silence before Carl finally spoke. Robert, this is it. Michael's in on the whole thing. He wants his partner to swoop in right after the event, assuming you'll be alone. My heart was pounding. This is real, Carl. It's downright dangerous. It is for sure. But we're on the brink of nailing this. One more night, and we'll have what we need to lock Michael up for good. That night, sleep was a no-show. Every little noise in the hall made me jumpy. Each creak of the ship was a sharp reminder of how hairy things were getting. Yet inside, there was a fire, that old feeling of resolve and spirit I hadn't felt in ages. Michael had sorely misjudged his father, and tomorrow was going to be his rude awakening. Come Thursday, Carl and I were ironing out the last bits of our plan. We had to get ship security on board, without cluing in whoever was watching over us, and do it in a way they'd take us seriously. Carl thought our best shot was to go right to Captain John Peterson. With his knack for business, Carl knew sometimes you have to go to the top to get traction. "Robert," he said as we prepared, "cruise ship captains are—" I'm no stranger to handling tough scenarios, kidnappings, heists, even threats on people's lives. So, at precisely 9 a.m., we knocked on the captain's door. The captain was about 50, gray hair, with a kind of aura that made you trust him instantly. "Gentlemen, Captain John Peterson, what brings you here today?" Carl stepped up first. "Captain, we've got a bit of a crisis. Mr. Robert Sullivan here is under watch by a suspicious character, and we fear he might be in harm's way." The captain invited us to sit, taking in our whole story. We shared the tapes of our talks with Michael and Claire, mentioned the one-way tickets, and described the guy shadowing me. "Mr. Sullivan," the captain said when we finished, "this is extremely serious. If what you're saying lines up, we're looking at an orchestrated murder on my ship." "Captain," I replied, "I know it's a wild story, but every piece of evidence fits perfectly towards that conclusion." "It's not outrageous to me at all," the captain replied, very serious. 20 years at sea, and there's not much I haven't come across. Greed can push people to do the unthinkable, even to their own family." Carl leaned in, making his case. "Captain, we've cooked up a plan to catch the suspect in the act during the gala, but we could really use your help and that of your security team." The captain absorbed every aspect of our plan. It was bold, but clever. I'd join the gala as expected, but afterward, instead of crashing in my cabin, I'd hide out with Carl. Meanwhile, the ship's security would watch over my cabin and its vicinity, ready to catch the shady character if he moved. "You've got a solid plan," the captain admitted. "But we'll fine-tune it to ensure you're completely safe." He suggested adding more cameras around my room, placing undercover security posing as guests in nearby halls, and giving me an emergency button I could hit anywhere on the ship. "Mr. Sullivan," he reassured as we were about to head out, "you're now officially under the ship's protection. Nothing will get to you under my watch." Finally, after days of stress, I could feel the tension easing off a bit. The day seemed to crawl by at a snail's pace. Carl and I spent hours hunkered down in his cabin, meticulously going over our plan again and again, making sure we had all bases covered. As the clock ticked towards 5 p.m., we kicked into gear to get ready for the big event. It was crucial that I come across as just another partygoer, nothing suspicious. I pulled on my snazziest green suit, styled my hair perfectly, and put on a show of excitement for the night ahead. Carl, in his flashy gold suit, looked every bit the part, oozing sophistication and poise. "Robert," he said as we put the last touches on our ensemble, "tonight's the night. By morning, you'll be free of Michael, and he'll finally face the consequences." The gala was absolutely stunning. The ship's main hall had transformed into a magical place filled with elegant decorations, live band tunes, and tables overflowing with fantastic food. Guests were sparkling in their attire, dancing, laughing, and having a ball. Meanwhile, I was laser-focused on the task at hand, my eyes constantly scanning the crowd for our target, the guy in the distinctive shirts. I eventually spotted him hanging around the bar, blending in with a smart white shirt and black suit combo. He appeared relaxed, but his eyes betrayed him, locked onto me with unyielding focus. Carl and I mingled, danced, and munched, keeping up appearances of enjoying a vacation evening, all the while counting down the minutes until we could spring into action. When the clock hit 11:30 p.m., I knew it was showtime. I sidled up to Carl and whispered, "It's go time. I'll head back to my cabin now. Give it 5 minutes, then come after me." As I nonchalantly exited the lively main hall, I walked slowly, playing the part of someone winding down after a fun night. I took the elevator to the 8th floor, where my cabin was, but instead of heading in, I made my way quickly to the emergency stairs leading to the 12th floor. From there, I had a clear view of the hallway leading to my room was eerily quiet and dimly lit by the ship's nightlights. Carl soon joined me, and we crouched on the stairs, peering through a small window to keep tabs on my cabin's entrance. "See anything?" Carl asked in a low voice. "Not yet, but he won't be long," I answered. And sure enough, we didn't have to wait for long. Right around 12:15, we saw a figure skulking down the corridor. It was our guy in the white shirt, now wearing black gloves and holding something indistinct. He headed straight for my door, paused by it, and pulled out what looked like a set of lockpicks. "Carl," I hissed. "He's about to break in. We need to alert security now." Carl immediately pressed the panic button the captain had given us. A tiny red light began winking, quietly signaling the ship's security team. As the intruder got my door open and slipped inside, we watched him flick on a small flashlight and start searching my room. Just moments later, security officers began closing in silently on the cabin from both ends of the hallway. Suddenly, the intruder exited the cabin and drifted towards the balcony. We watched closely through the hallway windows as he seemed to be inspecting the railing, maybe setting things up to look like I'd had a mishap. That's when security pounced. 3 officers burst into action, surrounding him before he could make a move. From our vantage point, we could hear the scuffle as they caught him. He yelled, insisting he'd gone into the wrong room by accident. But when they checked his pockets, they found lockpicking tools, and worst of all, a cell phone loaded with incriminating texts from Michael. Carl and I raced down to the 8th deck, where Captain John was already in charge, investigating the situation. "Mr. Sullivan," he said as we arrived, "we've apprehended the guy who tried to attack you, and we found some pretty damning evidence." He handed me the man's cell phone, and there they were, texts from Michael, with clear instructions. "Wait until past midnight. Make it appear like he simply fell from the balcony. Ensure there are no traces of a scuffle." I was hit with a whirlwind of relief and horror. Relief because I was still standing. Horror because my own son had orchestrated a plan to have me killed. "Captain," I asked, my voice a bit shaky, "what happens now?" "Well, Mr. Sullivan," he said, "the plan is to formally arrest this guy once we dock tomorrow. You'll have enough evidence to pursue legal action against your son for attempted murder." Friday morning seemed to stretch on endlessly. With the attacker in custody, Carl and I spent the night in his room, trying to make sense of everything. Captain John made sure the man stayed locked up in the ship's security cell until we reached port. "Robert," Carl mentioned around 3 a.m. as we sipped coffee, "do you realize what we've done? We not only saved your life, we now have concrete proof to put Michael behind bars." "I know," I replied, caught between feeling triumphant and deeply saddened. "But Carl, discovering that my only son, whom I loved and raised, wanted me gone, I don't know how to come to terms with this. You will, because you're stronger than Michael ever imagined, and now you get to live a life without his manipulation and malice." At 6 a.m., I got a call from Detective Harrison in Chicago. He'd been busy throughout the night delving into Michael's financials. "Mr. Sullivan," he said, clearly enthused, "I've found what we needed. Your son's neck-deep in gambling debts over $200,000, with some very dangerous folks. But there's more." "What else?" I asked. "Michael's been forging your signature across various bank papers. He even used your house as collateral for debts you knew nothing about." Without you, he'd stand to inherit everything and clear his dues. But Robert, there's one more detail. What is it? Claire has a mountain of debt, too. Her credit cards are overdue to the tune of more than $50,000. Each piece of news was like a dagger twisting in my chest. It wasn't just Michael. Claire was also caught up in this plot against me for money. "Detective Harrison, what's our next step?" I inquired. "Once you return to Chicago tomorrow, head straight to the police station," he advised. "With the mountain of evidence we've gathered, Michael and Claire won't stand a chance. They'll be arrested on the spot." After I ended the call, I found myself sinking into silence, trying to process it all. Carl understood I needed a breather. Eventually, I had to confront something I'd been avoiding. I had to call Michael. "Carl," I said, "I'm going to dial Michael now. I need to hear him realize I'm on to him." "Are you certain, Robert? Could be a bit risky," he warned. "I'm past worrying about danger," I responded. "I'm finished with this facade. I'm not the naive dad he imagines. It's time he learns his father's no pushover." I dialed Michael's number, and after the second ring, he answered. "Dad, this is unexpected. How are you holding up? Get any rest after the party?" He chirped, his tone syrupy sweet, but now I could hear the lies in every word. "Hey, Michael. Yeah, got some rest. But let me share a wild story from last night," I started. "What happened, Dad?" he asked. "So, after the party, when I got back to my room, someone was trying to break in. Can you believe it?" There was a heavy silence from his end. "A guy? What sort of guy?" he asked. "A man in his 40s. Security got him. And the kicker, Michael. Are you ready for it?" "What's that, Dad?" he asked. "His phone had your messages, directing him on how to make my death look accidental." The silence that followed was almost deafening, like he'd hung up. "Michael, you still there?" I asked. "Look, Dad," Michael said, his voice suddenly cold and menacing. "I have no clue what nonsense you're talking about. That can't be true." "Oh, but it is, Michael," I replied. "I've got every call recorded. I know all about that return ticket you skipped buying, the hitman you brought into this mess. Even the detective I got involved dug up all your gambling and fake loans tied to my house." There was a tense silence. "You hired a detective, Dad? Have you lost it?" Michael shot back. "No, Michael. I got wise and stopped being the fool who trusted you blindly," I countered. "Dad, maybe this travel stress is messing with your mind. What you're saying doesn't add up." "It adds up perfectly," I said. "Your plan flopped. The guy you sent is behind bars. I'm alive and well. And tomorrow when I get to Chicago, your arrest warrants will be ready to go." "Dad, seriously, calm down. We'll have a proper chat and figure this out when you're home. You're just mixed up," he insisted. "There's no mix-up, Michael. Just a deep sense of disappointment. It's heartbreaking to realize my son would rather see me gone for money than live." "Don't call me Dad anymore," I said, my voice unexpectedly strong. "A father is someone you respect and love. You saw me as just an obstacle in your way to riches." "Tomorrow, when I land in Chicago, I'm handing everything over to the police. I'm going to ensure you face the full weight of the law for trying to kill the one who gave you life," I declared. "Dad, don't. I'm your son," he begged. "A son doesn't try to bury his own father. That's not a son, that's a monster," I responded, and then hung up the phone. Carl pulled me into a hug as tears flowed down my face. They weren't just tears of sadness, but a tidal wave of relief, anger, and pain, an emotional flood let loose all at once. "Robert," Carl said quietly, "what you did took incredible bravery. This may feel like an end, but it's really a new beginning for you. A chance to be the Robert who won't be taken advantage of anymore." We spent the rest of the day preparing for the trip back to Chicago. Captain John pitched in to help organize all the evidence: the phone logs, security notes, eyewitness testimonies, photos of the man in custody, basically everything connected to the case. "Mr. Sullivan," he said to me just before dinner, "in all my 2 decades of sailing, I've never seen such courage and determination as yours. This week has been a whirlwind. Your son clearly underestimated what you were capable of. That last night on the cruise, Carl and I sat down for dinner at the main restaurant, just like our first day on board. I had no need to hide anymore, no more pretending or fear. As our champagne glasses clinked together, I looked Carl in the eye and said, 'I can't express how grateful I am, Carl, for everything you've done for me. You really saved my life.' Smiling, he tapped his glass against mine and replied, 'Robert, you saved yourself. I was just lucky enough to be part of the journey. This whole thing has taught me something as well. It showed us men our age have a lot left to offer, more strength than people might suspect. So, what do you plan to do when we're back?' I told him, 'I'll head back to Denver and truly start to live my life to its fullest. What about you, Robert? What's next on your agenda?' 'First, I'm making sure Michael gets justice for what he did. After that, I'm finally going to start living for myself, something I've never really done in my whole 64 years.' When the cruise docked in Miami on Saturday morning, I stepped off that ship a changed man. I was still Robert Sullivan, but a new, stronger, sharper, and more determined version of myself. Saying farewell to Carl at the port was tough. We both had tears in our eyes, but we promised to stay connected. Those crucial days turned Carl from merely a friend into a brother, an ally, a rescuer. As we hugged one last time, Carl said to me, 'Remember, Robert, you're not the man who suffers in silence anymore. You're now the man who fights back and comes out on top.' Nodding, I replied, 'I'll never forget, Carl. I won't forget how you were my angel when I needed help most.' My flight to Chicago was set for 3 p.m., so I had enough time to ring up Detective Harrison and double-check everything was ready for what was about to happen. 'Mr. Sullivan,' the detective confirmed, 'everything's in place. Once you land, we'll head right to the station. The chief's looked over all the evidence and the arrest warrants are ready to be issued.' On my way home from the trip, I sat on the plane and thought hard about everything that had happened. Just a week ago, I was this 64-year-old man who kind of kept to myself, always putting others first and letting people overlook me. But those 7 days on the cruise, they turned my world upside down. I uncovered a side of myself that was clever, a touch fearless, and way more determined than I ever thought I could be. Once we landed back in Chicago, Detective Harrison was there at the airport to meet me. He looked about 50, tall with a sprinkle of gray in his hair, and had this calm vibe that made you feel safe. He shook my hand and said, "Mr. Sullivan, it's an honor to meet you. What you pulled off on that cruise, well, it's nothing short of astonishing." I just shrugged. "Detective, I did what I had to do to get through it." But he wasn't having any of it. "No, Mr. Sullivan, you did much more than just survive. Uncovering your son's scheme the way you did, it's something even old pros in my field admire." We headed straight to the police station where Chief Carlos Martinez, a guy in his 40s who seemed serious yet friendly, was waiting. After I laid out the whole ordeal for him, he said, "Mr. Sullivan, in my 15 years working cases, I've never seen a victim build such an ironclad case themselves. The tapes, the money trail, the witnesses from the crew, it all ties everything up with a bow." "So now what?" I asked. The chief responded, "Arrest warrants are going out for Michael Sullivan, charging him with attempted murder, conspiracy, and financial fraud. Claire Sullivan's getting charged with conspiracy and aiding the attempted murder. Before the day ends, they'll both be locked up." 2 hours later, I was back home on edge. Detective Harrison stuck around in case Michael or Claire tried to pull something risky. Then at 6 p.m., the phone rang with Chief Martinez on the line. "Mr. Sullivan, it's done. Michael and Claire were nabbed attempting to flee the country, suitcases in hand, ready to board a plane to Toronto." I felt this heavy mix of relief and sorrow. relief because it was over. Yet, the finality of it all didn't bring the peace I thought it would. There was this deep sadness instead, facing the harsh reality that my own son wanted me out of the picture. What's next for him and Claire? The justice system will deal with them. With all the evidence stacked up, it seems like they'll be staring at long sentences. Michael's looking at roughly 20 years, and Claire about 10. That night was the first I spent alone in my home after such a chaotic week. Settling into my favorite chair, I reflected on how life had shifted. The fear my son had held over me was gone. No more hiding from the fact he was heartless or sacrificing my happiness for someone who couldn't care less. The greatest takeaway? I tapped into a strength I had no clue was there. I fought for myself, and I had won. The months that followed were hectic, filled with courtroom drama and legal hassles. Reliving the nightmare in front of a judge, facing Michael, and going over every heart-wrenching moment was tough, yet oddly freeing. During the trial, Michael tried to come off like he regretted everything, acting like a sorrowful son who'd made a huge mistake but still loved his dad dearly. However, the evidence was rock solid. The recordings, texts, testimony from his hired help, the cash trail, everything outlined him as the mastermind who wanted his father dead. When the verdict was read, Michael received 18 years and Claire got 8. Knowing their fate didn't spark joy, but justice felt served. Afterward, I decided it was time for big changes. I sold the house laden with painful memories and used the money to move to a cozy apartment in a new part of town. But the real transformation was in how I chose to spend my days going forward. I spent my time volunteering at a place for older men who had been through family abuse. My own experiences opened my eyes to the fact that so many men in my age group suffer in silence, often thinking they're stuck with their circumstances and have no choice but to put up with hurt from people they care about. I would sit down with them and say, "Let me tell you how my son tried to have me killed and how I not only got through it, but fought for justice." Sharing my story was powerful, and I could see the same spark in their eyes that I felt during the cruise. They realized they didn't have to stay victims. They had more strength and willpower than they thought possible. Carl and I became tight-knit, catching up every week and hanging out every so often. He wasn't just a buddy anymore. He was like a brother, helping me see who I really was. One night, about a year after those tough times on the cruise, Carl came over to my new place in Chicago. As we sat down to eat, he threw out a question that surprised me. "Robert, do you ever wish you'd kept quiet about what Michael did? Do you miss the relationship you had?" I answered right away. "Carl, what I thought I had with Michael was just make-believe. I held on because I wanted to believe I had raised a good son. The reality is, Michael was always manipulative, self-serving, and saw me as just a means to his ends. I just ignored who he really was. Then he asked if I missed having family around. Smiling, I said, "I do have family. There's you and the men at the center. They're like brothers to me. I'm living a life surrounded by people who care for just me and not for what they can gain from me." 2 years after returning from that pivotal cruise, I wanted to mark the new me with something special, so I joined dance classes. At 66, I found joy and excitement in swing, salsa, and ballroom dancing. Mr. Sullivan, my dance teacher Luis, a lively 30-year-old, said, "I've never seen someone your age dance with such confidence. Where'd you pick that up?" With a grin, I replied, "I learned at sea. When a man's fighting for his life, he finds strength he never knew he had." Looking back on those 7 days out at sea, I don't view them as my darkest times anymore. They were the days that saved me, the days when I found out who I really was. I'm Robert Sullivan, the man who survived the harshest betrayal. I've become a guy who turned the tables on my son, transforming him from a predator to prey. At 64, I realized it's never too late to become someone new. If there's a man out there around my age feeling stuck, underestimated, or let down by his own kids, I want him to see he's got a power in him that can move mountains. He just has to decide to use it. Because when someone like me says, "All right, if that's how you want it, go ahead. But you're going to be the one regretting it 3 times over," believe me, that's no empty threat. It's a promise, and I'm sticking to it. And I'll tell you this, Michael really regretted it. He regretted it when he got caught. He regretted it when he was sentenced. He's going to keep regretting it for the next 18 years as he sits in that cell, remembering how badly he underestimated the man who brought him into this world.